welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Eddie, your host, and today I have Kenny here with me. Kenny, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And I appreciate you driving all the way from where you came from, 3 states away?
Yeah, it was 3 states, give or take.
It's a bit of a hike.
It was fun, spirited.
And you brought the Gallardo.
I did.
So after this video, I actually want to go outside and kind of like shoot around it and, I don't know, maybe hear it.
Sure.
We'll go wash it. I mean,
yeah,
we'll wash it first.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
But apparently there was a lot of rain on the way over.
It broke my heart.
Yeah. But I did see you have good tires on the car, some Michelins.
Yes.
So you're in the safe zone with that.
Yeah. For sure.
So what line of work are you in, and what are you like a subject matter expert of?
So I own the Richmond Insurance Group, and my company is licensed in 14 states, and we work with 64 companies. So,
wow.
For us, insurance is obviously protecting, risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the things that people work hard to own and keep and enjoy every day, right? The houses, the cars, the exotic cars, side-by-sides, the recreational vehicles, pontoon boats. Of course, my line of work, deal with a lot of business owners. So, the commercial stuff, we do life insurance, and here probably within the next 60 days, we're getting into health insurance as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm really, all right, I'm going to have to, this show is going to be all about picking your brain, because there's a lot that exotic car owners, homeowners, or recreational like boat owners need to know. So I've never really had the opportunity to ask all the 5 questions, who, when, where, how.
Sure.
So for an exotic car,
Mm-hmm.
let's say either A, a viewer has one, or
Mm-hmm.
B, they plan to get one.
Mm-hmm.
What are some tips that they need to know whenever going down this path for an exotic? Let's use a Lamborghini, for example, because clearly we're big fans.
Yeah, we're fans for sure. So the first thing I'll start with, if you are doing the pre-work. If you are doing the pre-work and you really want one of the cars, a lot of people, I know I did when I bought mine. I put a ton of time into, what are the all the things I need to know about the car. What are the things I look for? What are the things that are really, really good? What are the things that are really, really bad? PPIs,
Mm-hmm.
of course, the financials, you want to look at, what's the car? Can I get the financing for the car? If that's, applicable,
Yeah.
Do you have the right bank relationship with your banker that can get that done? But a lot of people do forget about insurance. And so the thing that people have to know about buying an exotic car, especially if it's your first one, is it's going to be very, very challenging. Okay. So if you have, if your daily driver is a 2017 Dodge Ram, a lot of these insurance companies are going to be looking for, letters of experience. They're going to want to see a performance resume. So if you don't have any type of, prior ownership of, for instance, Hellcats or, twin turbo Vipers or GTRs or anything that's kind of in that same, ballpark of what it is you're trying to acquire, insurance companies are going to be very, very selective and could possibly deny coverage.
Oh.
Because, you just get into situations where it's, what's the risk?
Okay.
The way I kind of explain it is, it's kind of like getting credit for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you go into your local bank, your local credit union, you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, and you've never had a loan before in your name, you're asking for that bank to take a chance on you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so if they do take that chance on you, there's a very good probability that it's not going to be the same interest rate with you that it may be with your friends or family that's been there for 15, 20 years, and they've established that track record of payments on time. It's the same thing with, exotic cars. These underwriters, they don't know, if you be honest, they don't know if you can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to park it in a neighborhood you shouldn't park it in? Are you going to lie on the application? Can you handle the car that you're buying? Just because you have the finances to buy the car doesn't mean that you have the mental to know how to operate that car in said conditions.
Okay.
Hence, over the last few years, every day it was, when the Hellcats first came out, it was every day it was brand new Hellcat with 5 miles on it was getting totaled, right? It's the same thing with these exotic cars. Right. So that would be the first thing is to, once you get the financials and things like that in line, you want to start working through the insurance process. The second thing is that you need to know is that going through the insurance process is not as, again, it's not as simple as, you call down to the insurance office and you get a quote in 3 or 4 seconds. These underwriters, they're going to be asking for photos of the car. They're going to want to see pictures of the front, the rear, both sides. They're going to want to see pictures of the interior, the engine bay. They're going to want a comprehensive list of any type of aftermarket work that's been done to the car, if any. They're going to see an odometer statement, so a picture of the odometer in a lot of cases. And then from there, it's really evaluated on a case by case basis. We see a lot of people that are 40 years old that just bought an exotic and they're getting declined on insurance because they can't find it. So
Jeez.
happens every day.
So to be a car enthusiast out the gate, like for me, I've always owned sport cars since I had my driver's permit.
Yeah, same.
Like CRX SI, that's a little sports car, a little zippy little thing.
Yeah, right.
So that track record, all the way back to my high school days, has helped me.
Oh yeah.
In today's day, whenever I got my Gallardo insured, or the 3 GTRs that I've had prior to the Gallardo,
your Supra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a factor. I just, from my understanding, and I don't know how much other people actually know about the background or the fine details on how they select whether they approve you for the coverage or not. But I thought it was just, don't have a speeding ticket and don't have a track record of crashing a car or putting yourself in that position.
I mean that's some of it, but I mean, to give you some personal insight, in 2020, I had a 28-foot enclosed trailer stolen from me. This trailer was being stored at a storage unit complex. Okay. When I purchased my Gallardo, one of the insurance companies that I work with every day declined me coverage because I had a theft claim, something that was 300,000% out of my control. I have no speeding tickets. I have no points on my license. The only thing that's on my driving record, or my MVR, if you will, is that theft claim. It was $8,800, and they declined coverage on that because of that. So there's a lot of things there that, again, the average person doesn't think about. And it's kind of like insurance, kind of going back to that performance resume. It's the same way, right? So like when you buy a car, right? Most people, their first car is not a Lamborghini, right?
Yeah.
Like they start with, like you said, the CRX, right? You work and you build through, right? And most of the time, as you work and build through with your credit as well, finances as well, things like that, to get to the point where now you can, hop into the Lambo, the McLaren, whatever it is that you want. Your insurance is really the same way.
Do they look at the car itself? Like I've heard that, like the Hellcats you were saying, the Hellcats are known to be crashed almost immediately. So like, do they look at McLarens and then they see like those cars they're problematic and they always have issues, or they always catch on fire, or whatever the McLarens are doing? Do they like basically like, does that give a worse score than what a Lambo or Ferrari would?
Yes. So for instance, like going back to the Hellcat thing, Hellcats on average are 60 times more likely to be stolen than any other car, right? So as you can imagine, underwriters, insurance companies are reevaluating those risks every day. Of course, in the last few weeks, it's been all over that, the Kia Optimas, the Kia Sorrentos, fire, theft. There's been signs. I mean, like I seen a post the other day on Facebook that there was a garage complex in Nashville that said if you drive one of these 3 cars, you can't park it in here. Because there's so many open recalls on those cars that if one of those just randomly catch fire, it could get 7 or 8 cars there beside it.
Which car was this?
I believe it was the Optimas, Sorrentos. It was definitely the Optimas and Sorrentos, and I think there might have been one more, but it was all Kia product.
Is that a EV car?
No. No, those are not EV cars. That's the crazy part. Yeah, I believe it was the Elantra or the Sonata was in that as well, but it was definitely 3 of those Kia models. Yeah.
How about Tesla? How's the track record looking for that?
Teslas, from an insurance perspective, are relatively inexpensive to insure.
Okay.
Of course, the demon in the closet with those is, of course, fire.
Yeah.
When there's a claim on a Tesla, it's not $1,700. It's $35,000, $40,000. Most of the time, it's a total loss with a Tesla.
Yeah.
because it's not just the cost of the parts; it's parts availability.
Mm,
So the insurance company, they have a right to repair a client's car in due time.
mm.
So if there's we've had thousands of claims over the years that have been deemed total losses just because of parts availability.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that parts availability was an issue whenever
Yeah.
it came to
hmm
tolling out a car.
hmm
So with that being said, it kind of how is where's the Gallardo fall in that category of how quick they're going to be to total out a Gallardo? Because I've seen some people like basically run curves over,
hmm
and then they were told that the insurance company wants to total it out
hmm
because like a bent control arm and some
hmm
side skirts.
Yeah. So the big thing you get into there again is parts availability. When
Yeah.
you start talking, when you start talking about cars that are, you know, 15, 16, 18, 20 years old, parts aren't really being produced anymore. And you see a lot of that.
Mm.
We had one of our clients had a comprehensive claim. Rock hit his windshield. The windshield was $9,000.
Hmm.
So and then again, what's the time frame to get that? You're not calling SafeLight to get one of those. you know, so there's a lot of things there that go into that. We had a GT3 RS recently totaled because of something very similar to that.
Really?
hmm
No, not the cup car.
hmm
And watch that thing is going to be back on Car Gurus, and it's going to be like, this is a great deal. Like, yeah, this is like 10,000 less than the market, and then it's like salvage title.
Right. Yeah. We happens more than you know. It
Wow.
it really does. Yeah. Happens all the time.
I'm always car shopping,
Me too.
and I see those cars the first thing up. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got low mileage. It's a good looking car.
I ran across a great deal the other day on a Mercy on eBay,
Uh,
and then I looked at it. I was like, "Oh yeah, rebuilt title." Yeah,
I think they
back
need
looks
like
strong.
a special frame, like a special identifier. Like let's just call it a purple frame, so you know exactly as you're scrolling that's a salvage car.
Yeah,
At a green frame or orange frame
yeah,
needs like rebuilt title, and then a green frame
good to
is
go.
good to go, and then
Yeah,
you can just weed that out and just go straight for the nice one.
I can't speak for you, but I look at so many cars pretty much every day that when I see one that's 15, 20,000 below, most of the time I don't even click it because it's just like I already know what it is.
I,
Because you stay with the market for so long that
yeah,
it's just like you just know what the market's doing.
everything has my curiosity. So like,
Yeah.
because if you look at and recently I haven't really seen a lot of privately sold exotic cars. It seems like it's all dealerships that are selling these cars.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just Car Gurus because that's the only one I really go on. I don't really use Auto Trader. I don't really shop on there or look on there. But when I was looking for the gated Gallardo, it was kind of just fun for me to just continuously scroll through every listing and click on it
Mhm.
and go through all the photos and
Mhm.
find out it's the e-gear car, and then I just go
Yeah.
backwards. Not looking for that. That was whenever I was searching to buy one.
I'm a big fan of Auto Tempest.
Okay.
That's what I use. So it kind of takes everything from like cars.com, Car
Mm.
Gurus, Auto Trader, eBay, and so you can just go there, search it, and then it just kind of compiles them all into one big
Yeah.
filter. It
And
kind
I
of saves
think
me a little time.
Ed
But
Bolin preaches that auto temp as well.
yeah, I pretty much look at it every day. At some point. But my Gallardo, I bought it from private seller.
Really?
Yeah, I bought it. I found it it's in one of the Facebook groups. Yeah, and I've been
Yeah.
looking for that car for at that point probably 3.5 years, and I was all over it.
Was it specific to the color and gated?
Yes, yes. So when many years ago, when I was like, all right, I want one of these cars,
Mm.
I I was very specific. It's got to be a Rancio Borealis and it's got to be a gated. And if it's not those two things, then it's a hard no. And I spent 3.5 years looking for that car.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I had a million friends say, man, you could buy this black one for, 90 grand or whatever. And I was like, man, it's great. It's a great deal, but it's an e-gear car and it's black. Like,
Mm.
if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting this long. So
I held off for a gated car. I honestly didn't care what color.
okay.
I didn't want yellow, but
Yeah.
it was a really close call whenever the white one came up for sale. And the reason why I went for the white one is because it was actually 3 hours away from me at the time. And the yellow one was at like 14 hours away. So like I did a short trip right over
Yeah.
the state line to Ohio and checked it out. And I was like, yeah, I'll go for this one. But I do remember your car being up for sale a while ago, and my buddy in Pennsylvania, John, he was looking at Gallardos, and I was like pushing him so hard to get a Gallardo, and he was really looking at that car.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember because your car is very specific with the titanium
Mm-hmm.
B Rogue intakes and B
Mm-hmm.
Rogue exhaust.
Yeah.
So and I think those wheels have been on that car for a very long time as well.
Yeah, they've been on there. Yeah.
So he was looking at that, and fast forward, I guess a couple months later, I'm horrible with these Italian color names. I'm
Mm-hmm.
horrible. It's always the white car, the orange car, the green car,
Right.
not Aurora Borealis, whatever all the
Right.
names are. And
Right.
all the Lamborghini purists are gonna bash me for this, but like, it's orange. Like, what is it?
Oroncio Borealis. But here's the thing: you could
Yes.
ask me, white, and it'd be like it's white. I mean,
Blanco car.
yeah, I couldn't tell you white, black, green.
Yeah. So
Verde Ithaca, I know Verde Ithaca, but Verde Mantis, I know Verde Mantis. Oroncio Atlas. There's Oroncio Ishtar, maybe. I think that's like one or something on a Mercy or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're speaking another language
But,
right now.
Yeah, I was speaking Italian apparently. Yeah. But no, I knew, I come from super, super humble beginnings. And so I knew that when I got to the point of owning that car, I knew everything about the car.
Mm.
I mean, because it's literally what I dreamed about,
Yeah.
So I just knew. I was like, this is what I want, and I'm not going to settle for anything less.
Yeah. So my buddy John in Pennsylvania, he ended up getting an orange car.
Yeah.
What's the name?
Oroncio Borealis.
Oroncio Borealis. He's got a pretty snazzy wing on it.
Yeah.
It's gated too.
Nice. Good for him.
And he just loves that car.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy for y'all because like he legit held out like you did.
Yeah.
And wouldn't settle for anything else except for the gated and the Oroncio Borealis.
Yeah.
And now both of y'all have that, and I'm really happy for y'all.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And two, my big thing too is I wasn't really going for a terrible. Which I mean, when your field is so small, you don't have a great deal of options anyway.
Mm.
But I really lucked out. My car had 47,000 miles on it when I bought it, which cars, of course, as you know, traditionally don't sit well. So, I really wasn't looking for a car with 1,300 miles, 1,400 miles, because my brain automatically goes to, well, every hose and vacuum line and everything else, whatever else is there needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
So the fact that the car had been enjoyed and had, of course, the service records were a huge help, clean title, nothing on Carfax. I mean, of course, that was all, it was all a plus. But the fact that the car had been driven, it gave me a lot of confidence in it.
That's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I flew down, checked the car out, and drove it 900 miles home.
What state was that in?
It was in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, Sarasota.
Sarasota.
Yeah. So, I believe I flew into Tampa, and then caught an Uber over to the hotel, and then went over the next morning, checked it out, and drove it home.
That's good.
Yeah.
I do remember when I got mine, the dealership offered a windshield coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife used to sell cars.
Mm-hmm.
When I got home
Mm-hmm.
and I showed her like the bill of sale, or what's that thing called?
The buyer's order.
The buyer's order. And she's like, "You bought windshield coverage? Like, didn't I teach you better? Like, that's just them upcharging you. Like, they just got thousands of dollars out of you for this." I was like, "Oh, what do I do?" She's like, "You can go back and tell them to remove it."
Yeah.
All right.
Cancel it.
So I'll go that. I did that. But yeah, I mean, just the way they sold it to me was like really convincing. I was like, I'll get that. Because like the Gallardo windshield, it's not gonna be cheap.
Mm.
So, and I've had vehicles where a rot kicks up.
I mean, yeah, but the reality of all of this is you're probably not daily driving your Gallardo, right? So obviously it's hard for something to happen to the windshield if it's in the garage.
Correct.
Right. So the probability there is little to none, right? Now, if it's like my daily driver, like I have a $0 glass deductible,
Nice.
right? So if something happens, it's really it's no out of pocket expense to me. I think on my Lambo, I think I have a $2,000 deductible. I think that's the highest we could go. So if I need a $9,000 windshield, it's going to cost me $2,000. You know, um, but a lot of these newer cars, with all the the lane departure and
Mhm.
a lot of those sensors are built into the actual windshield
Oh,
itself.
yeah.
So technology has changed from Safe Light can still come to your house and do some of this stuff, but if you have a vehicle that's got the sensors and the rain sensing and
Yes.
all those things in it, it's actually got to go into a repair facility for them to calibrate it back to the car.
Wow.
Yeah. So now it's not uncommon now to see windshields for, like some of these Navigators and Tahoes,
Mm.
Suburbans, Escalades, to be 18, 1900, $2,000.
Oh,
Yeah. As
okay.
opposed to 10 years ago, it being $600.
I didn't think about the sensors inside the
Yeah.
windshield. That's true.
Yeah. See it every day.
I didn't think about that. But does have you seen exotic cars go for uh, a less premium than for coverage than daily driver cars?
Yes, but it's very, there's, okay. So there's over 400 variables
Mm.
that go into what you do or don't pay for insurance.
Okay.
Okay. And so you get into a very specific group of people here. So so for instance, if you are 60 years old and you have A1 perfect credit and you own your house and you've got I say 14 other policies, right? But you've got your home, clearly your auto, maybe you've got an umbrella, life insurance, all these other things with this particular agent, that's going to offer some additional discounts and credits that
Okay.
maybe if you just call Geico on a whim, that they wouldn't be able to offer you.
Mhm.
You can get into situations like that. I mean, I've got a guy right now, he comes to my mind, got a brand new C8 Z06.
Mhm.
Those cars are hot right now.
Yes.
They're hot right now. And he pays less for insurance on his C8 Z06 that's valued at, I think we done an agreed value on this car at $250,000, and he pays less for it than literally somebody that I talked to on Friday that drives a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, I mean, yeah, I see it every day. I
Mm.
mean, I pay $2,000 a year for insurance on my Lamborghini. That's what I pay. That's what I pay. I pay $2,000 a year for it. So, I mean, but now I know people that have just your XLT F-150s that pay more than that
Okay.
because maybe they don't own their home, they rent. Maybe they've got a colorful driving record, right?
Yeah.
They like to go for spirited drives.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that it's more so about the person as opposed to the car
Okay.
or the vehicle.
Okay. I do remember when I went and got my Gallardo, I traded my truck in. I had a Raptor,
Okay.
and the insurance didn't go up much at all.
Okay.
For going from a truck to an exotic car, it was such a small difference. Like it was below $200 difference
Mhm.
to upgrade to
So
this car.
so the thing there is, and the one thing, of course, with what I do is I try to educate people. And so the one thing that I've learned is that everybody looks at, well, it was a couple $100s, it was less than $200 to go from a Raptor to a Lambo.
Mm.
My first thought as not just an agent, but as an agency owner is that's great, but is the coverages where they need to be?
Okay.
So, so every state has state minimums,
Mhm.
which basically means this is the least amount of insurance that any insurance company that's admitted into the state that's doing business can write you, and you could still be considered to be legal to be out here on a public roadway.
Mhm.
So where we are now, the state minimums here are it's a 30, 60, 25. So it's $30,000 bodily injury per person, $60,000 bodily injury per accident, and $25,000 property damage.
Isn't that kind of low?
It's extremely low. So layman's terms to this is if I'm out here in your Gallardo with you
Mm.
and we get a little wild and you put it in a ditch and I've got 70 grand worth of medical bills
Mhm.
and you have a state minimum, you're short 40,000
Mhm.
in that situation. Or if I hear the objection all the time. Well, I'm a really good driver. Great. What if you have a part failure? What if you got a tire that goes down on you? What if you got a wheel bearing that goes out?
Mm.
There's a million things. What if you're just on your phone texting and driving and you come left of center?
Mhm.
In either one of those situations, you're short 40,000.
Mhm.
right? 30 grand, that's a lot of money, but that's not a lot of money if you got to take it and pay a hospital bill with it,
Correct, yeah.
right? It's not going to go very far.
No, not today.
So that's the part of it that you get into. The 60,000 is just kind of a continuation of that, right? That's per accident. So if there's multiple people hurt, right? So if there's 2 or 3 people in your truck, or if you come left of center and you hit, baseball mom Betty, and she's got 3 kids in there on her way home from baseball practice. It's
Mhm.
the same thing, right? 60 grand, that's a lot of money, but not a lot of money if you got multiple people hurt or injured.
Mhm.
Property damage, 25 grand. I mean, a new Camry's $40,000 now,
Mhm.
right? Tahoe's 70 grand all day. Suburban's 80, 90 grand. Escalades are 130, 140 grand now,
Wow.
right?
Mhm.
That Raptor R, you won't get one for MSRP, but if you can, they're 115 grand. The TRXs are 105.
Mhm.
So you're in a space where I would tell you what I tell everyone else, which is if your coverages are where they need to be, and it was a couple $100 a year difference, then hey, that's great. But if your coverages aren't where they need to be, and then you get in an accident, and then you're on the phone with your agent, like, what do you mean I don't have enough insurance? What I've been paying you for?
Mhm.
Now you probably ain't thinking about that $200 upcharge, because now you've been like, well, man, you should have told me I would have paid another $1,000 a year,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, do you want the little bill and then a lot of the big bill, or do you just want to pay the little one and let us take care of the big one?
Mhm.
So, the state that I live in is actually worse than where we are now. I mean, it's $25,000 per person. It's 50,000 per accident, and property damage is 25 grand.
Mhm.
Tennessee, up until earlier this year, was 25,000 per person, 50,000 per accident, $15,000 property damage.
Is that because that area, the cost of living is lower? Is it something like this?
It could be. I mean, there's obviously there's statistics galore with
Yeah.
insurance. I mean, and that's part of the 400 variables,
Yeah.
right? I mean, but there's statistics galore on this stuff.
Uh-huh.
But irregardless of stats, you got to have better insurance, because you get into other stuff. I'll tell you a story. My ex-wife and I, back in April of 2019, we got hit head on by a guy texting and driving. I had a 2019 Ram 1500 Laramie Sport. It was a new body style. It was the 5th generation truck. Had a big 12-inch screen in it. The truck was 70 grand. The truck was 6 months old. It had 1,700 miles on it. Okay.
Mm.
But we got hit head on one day by a guy texting and driving. Okay. And the guy that hit us had a state minimum policy, so $25,000. Okay. So after it was all said and done, the insurance company still deemed the truck to be worth, I think it was 66 grand, which means effectively he was short 41,000.
Mhm.
Okay. So my underinsured motorist stepped up, took care of me, wrote me a check, and I went out, 3, 4 weeks later, whatever, and I bought a new truck. Well, what happened on that side was, then, of course, the truck gets sold at auction, and whatever the wholesale, whatever the truck bought, Copart or whatever it was. But in that situation, what happens is the insurance company then sends the at fault party, an invoice, and says, "Hey, you owe us 41 grand. You got 30 days to pay it. It's due on this day, and if you can't pay that, call this number for a payment arrangement."
Mhm.
Well, in this situation, this guy told the insurance company to kick rocks and pound sand, and he wasn't going to do nothing.
Mhm.
Well, so they turned it over to the legal team. They took him to court, and a lot of states allow for wage garnishments.
Mm.
So they took him to court. They sued him, and obviously the judge sided with the insurance company. And I believe it was either $181 or $187 a week that was being garnished from his paycheck, because he caused an accident that he wasn't insured for the limits to cover.
Okay.
So he had a $700+ a month truck payment
Mhm.
on a truck that he couldn't even enjoy, And
Yeah.
so I jokingly tell people that, aside from a marriage license or a divorce decree, I mean, these insurance documents are some of the most expensive sheets of paper that you're ever going to buy.
Yeah. So what's more of a comfort zone to have the numbers at for people to have a little bit more on that sheet, more
So,
support?
uh, as somebody that's licensed in 14 states, and of course my goal is to get nationwide, but speaking in regards to the 14 states I am licensed in, Your minimums, in my opinion, should be 100,000 per person, 300,000 per accident, and $100,000 property damage. You should also have at least 100,000 per person and 300,000 per accident on your under and uninsured motorist as well.
Okay.
Because certainly the last spot that you would want to be in is in a spot where you get hit by some drunk bozo, you get hit by some broke college kid, and now you've got to pay the medical bills because they didn't have the coverage, and you got to pay it to protect your credit. Now you're maybe trying to shortcut physical therapy and rehab because you're trying to protect your credit. You might not be able to get back to where you was before the accident, or worse, you turn into a statistic. You call one of these personal injury attorneys. One of the guys that you see every other commercial on TV or on every other billboard going down the interstate, and then you're going through the litigation process for 2, 3, 4 years. It's just, call it what it is. It's just a hell of a lot easier to have better insurance. Now, the other thing that is very specific to the client is the underinsured motorist property damage. So, if you've got a vehicle that's worth $35,000, okay, then you don't necessarily need $100,000 worth of property damage, right? There's no sense in paying for what you don't need, right? I mean, if you've got a F-150 that's worth 40 grand, insurance company's not going to give you 100 in the event of a loss. They're going to give you what the truck is worth. But, if you've got, if you've got a $75,000 Tesla, if you've got a, high country Silverado, it's $80,000 truck, then you should probably have that, because those go in increments. They go from 25, 50 to 100, right? So that part's going to be very specific to the insured, and as far as what their assets are. For all of my people that have exotic cars, I mean, listen, I can't speak for you, but I know for me that when I'm in my car, I feel like I got a bullseye on my back.
Oh, really?
I do. Because we live in a very sue-happy environment.
Like the culture.
Everybody's trying to figure out a way to win the lottery, right? And so, traditionally speaking, I think people's backs tend to hurt a little bit more when they get hit by a Mercedes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's just presumed that those people are well-to-do. They're well off. They have money. So, your homeowners, exotic car owners, like I have rental property, I have investments. You need to, what I would recommend is that you carry at least $500,000. It's called a combined single limit policy. It's $500,000. And then I'd also recommend that you go with an umbrella on top of that, just to prevent, from really anything happening. So what I just explained was what's called a split limit policy. So it's 100,000 per person, 300,000 per accident, 100,000 property. So they kind of split those up.
Okay.
Well, so if you have $100,000 property limit, okay, and somebody hits my $150,000 Lambo, they're still going to be short $50,000. Now, if you have a 500,000 CSL combined single limit, what the insurance company is saying is we don't care if somebody's got $150,000 worth of medical bills or you hit and destroy a $150,000 car. We're going to pay up to $500,000 per accident, and it doesn't matter where the money goes.
Okay.
The 100,000 property that I was mentioning earlier, that's going to safely insure 98% of America, right? I mean, the probability of somebody hitting my Lambo is slim to none. The probability. I mean, could it happen? Yes, but that's why I insure for it. But the probability of that is not a great deal. No different than somebody rear-ending a Rolls Royce, right? Now, that probability heightens if you're in Miami, where they're on every other corner, right?
Yeah.
Right? But where I live and where you live, that's not something that you see every day, right? So, but if you go to a $500,000 CSL and then you put an umbrella on that, you do a $1 or $2 million umbrella, that's really going to protect you from about anything, because the umbrella picks up anything above that. So, if you hit somebody in a $400,000 Aventador, well, then your primary policy is going to pay that. And if they've got 300 grand in medical bills, well, then the other 100 is paid by the primary policy, and the additional 200 gets picked up by the umbrella. And we've had some crazy things happen. I've got a client that lives in my not in my neighborhood, but lives in my town. Very, very, very well to do. Multiple cars, and he's got a Pagani, he's got an Enzo, he's he's doing very, very well. To meet the guy you'd never know, he just like us, right? He's just so humble. And that's one of the greatest things I love about Frank. He's just so humble. But son was out one evening flying a drone in his backyard. Son at the time was 14, 15 maybe. Flying a drone. Drone malfunctions. Drone comes falling out of the sky, right? And it flies into the neighbor's yard. And the neighbor happened to be outside doing some landscaping. Had his AirPods in. He don't hear it. He's just oblivious to the world around him, right? He's just out there working his mulch, doing his deal. Drone comes in, cracks him in the face, gets him in the eye. But this neighbor is a trauma surgeon who has been practicing for 2.5 years. Frank had a $25 million umbrella, and we used every penny of it. Because the trauma surgeon says, well, I went to school for this long to learn how to do this, and I was in residency for this long, and this is what I earn. This is now what I'm not going to be able to earn, because you can't be a trauma surgeon if you're blind in one eye, which he now is. And every year Frank would pay that, and every year he'd give me grief about paying that. He'd never give me grief about paying for the Enzo. He never gave me grief about paying for the 911 Turbo S. He never gave me grief about paying for any of that stuff. But that one invoice was always the one that he harped on me about.
Wow.
And now, I mean, and listen, if he wouldn't have had that, he would have had to have definitely liquidated some things. You know, and so,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, so and this is stuff that, you just can't make it up. Like that happened.
The odds of that happening, and like timing, and
it's I mean, wow. I mean, and that's the thing, everybody that I talk to, the one thing that everybody has in common that I talk to every day is they all think it'll never happen to them. They all think that it'll never happen to them. Situation a couple years ago. Guy calls the office. He wants a quote for life insurance. Happy to do it. Do the quote, set it up, and then wants to think about it. Hey, think about it all you like. Fast forward 3 months. He's in the bathroom. He takes a shower. He's in the bathroom one morning. He's shaving. Feels a lump. Feels a knot in his throat. Right? Throat cancer. All of a sudden now he doesn't qualify for life insurance.
Is that because he got it diagnosed through his medical, and there's a doctor that said that there was?
Because at that point it was in his MIB, it was in his medical information bureau.
Known.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas prior, the policy would have been issued with no problem. Right. So, the people, insurance is not like the most sexy thing in the world, right? I mean, like it's just not, but it's something that people would agree that you got to have. And so, the people that passed away today had plans for tomorrow. I mean, they just do. I mean, I'm sure you've got plans this weekend. I know I do, but we're not given tomorrow, so if you're ahead of it, and the really neat thing about it, you just got to do it one time. You just got to get ahead of it one time, and then you're ahead of it. You're ahead of it forever. Yeah. You might want to review it 5-6 years down the road as your financial situation changes, or marital status, or whatever. But have children, right? Family change. But it's not something you got to look at every day. You do it once. You spend 20-30 minutes looking at it. You review it. And you go on.
Yeah. What about the boats?
Yeah, I mean, we had I say we, but a good friend of mine works at Lake Cumberland, and they had a boat go down that didn't have insurance on it, and the EPA sent them a bill for $304,000 for cleanup.
What?
Yeah.
How big was the boat?
It was a 54-foot houseboat.
And was it like fuel related or oil?
It was
oil.
From what I can recall, it's a little bit of both.
$350,000
almost
to clean up like what floating on the surface.
Yeah, and then I got the invoice in my email, but they they wanted to charge them to like restock the lake and everything with like, yeah, because they so many, so
Yeah.
much, so many fish had passed, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, they wanted to replace the resource.
Wow.
Yeah, so you see this stuff.
Huge ripple effect on that.
Yeah. Uh, you know, obviously, lake season brings out everybody, wanting to have a good time. Alcohol gets involved.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
When you've got people running around and, like for instance, bass boats, they're
Hmm.
50, 60, 80 plus grand. They
Yes.
can go 80, 90 miles an hour on water.
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean, what's going to happen, but you get out in a lot of the, the cigarette boats and things like that,
Yes.
the speed boats, and,
Yes.
a lot of those guys, they like to have a few beverages,
Hmm.
and we get a handful of claims every year from people that just, they don't understand that a DUI on water is no different than a DUI in your car. They do not understand that. They think that when they're on the water, the lakes are not applicable, or the laws are not applicable.
Mm. Do you guys see more DUIs from water recreation than road, or is it just because there's more people on the road? You get more of those. You see more of those.
Yeah, we definitely see more road
Okay.
related DUIs, because just not everybody has a boat.
Correct. Right.
Definitely see per accident. There's definitely more fatalities involving boats.
Really?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, this year alone, I think we've lost 17 or 18 clients in water related accidents just this year.
So is it the people going over the boat and then going under the boat, or is it another boat colliding with the boat going on top of a boat? What is
I mean, it's been a mixture of both. I mean, earlier this year we had two kids. They were brothers. One was 18, one was 14, that passed away
Jeez,
in jet skis. Jet ski
jet
accident.
skis?
Hmm.
Was it two multi jet ski, one jet ski,
It was
multi jet ski?
playing around, having a good time.
And jet skis are fast,
They are.
fast,
And
fast.
so that kind of comes back around to the whole Lamborghini conversation, right? If you're not equipped to handle that, if you don't have a lot of experience with it,
Uh,
then what happens?
yeah. So like, I've seen a lot of videos on like exotic cars wrecking,
Hmm.
and like people like make a lot of videos.
Yeah.
And there's a specific one where a yellow Gallardo is going left turn through an intersection,
Hmm.
and I guess the owner throttled too much,
Got it.
and it broke loose,
spun out
and
on
it
him.
spun out and hit the I think it hit the curb. I think that's the one where the guy hits the curb. But like, I'm so light footed on it because I don't want to be in that position. So
Right.
like, I feel like people are there's some people that are just waiting for it to happen, to waiting, like it's expected to see, like they're gonna show off, and here it goes. Just like that one video of the Corvette. There's two Corvettes at a stoplight, and this guy in a truck is like recording.
Yeah.
He's like, "Look at these two idiots."
Yeah, I've seen
and
it.
then, brrr, and then
Yeah.
this guy, and then
Yeah.
the
That's
Corvettes,
the other one.
T-bones, and they all go in the bushes in the ditch. Like, what just happened right there? Like, how did y'all just do that in 100 feet? Like, they make it through the light, but then this car
Yeah.
is sideways, and
Yeah.
they're both in the bushes.
It's an experience, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, you can blame road conditions, but it's an experience.
Inexperience, yeah.
I mean, if you're going to own a car like that, you should, understand what it's capable of and how to handle it.
Correct. So that sparks a question in my mind, looping the experience. Is there? I remember when at my high school days there was like this course that I did,
Hmm.
and I gave a certificate to the insurance company,
Mhm.
and I think it gave me a discount.
Hmm.
Is there something like that for adults?
Yeah.
It's like a what courses are out there that you can do a cert and give to the insurance company?
There's a lot of different ones.
Okay.
And so my advice on that would be to contact whoever you have insurance with and just ask them for a list.
Okay.
So because I work with 64 companies, right? So there's some programs that maybe company A would take that, but the same cert company B maybe would not,
Mhm.
right? So it's not like a universal one size fits all type of thing. But there are definitely like defensive driving courses out there that definitely help.
Yeah.
I know Mopar does for Hellcat owners and things like that. Like they do driving schools.
Okay.
I've seen that help. Shelby does the same thing.
Nice.
I've seen that help.
Okay.
So there's a lot of those things out there that are available if people want to go do it.
Man, I wonder how dealerships would do if whenever they close the deal on selling, let's say a Hellcat, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and is like, here's this,
Mm.
and in this paper right here, if you want to sign up for a high performance Mopar driving course, the benefits would be that you submit this to this insurance company if you choose to go with them, or these 15 insurance companies if you choose to go with them, and they'll accept it as a cert
Mm-hmm.
for a discount. And it's just better driving skills and knowledge in your bag as an owner of a performance car.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of a good idea for a dealership to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and especially, and I've said this for. I've got a really good friend that actually works at a Ram dealership,
Mm.
and he in Michigan, and he was one of the first in the country with a Hellcat.
Mm.
And I remember when I rode in it for the very first time, I was like, "There's no reason these should be sold to the general public without some type of training."
Which Hellcat?
He had a Challenger Hellcat. He had a 2015 Challenger Hellcat, and I just remember getting in it, and I was just like, "Man, like
So
this."
that's 707 horsepower
I
car.
think they were 707 at
Okay.
that time. Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, just because you got a good job and you got good credit, don't mean you can drive that car. I mean, that's 700 horse. I mean, a lot of people don't realize how mental that is if they're not able to handle it.
Mm.
I mean, you go from, your 4-door sedan or whatever you're driving at the time, or shoot, even, I mean, I had a 2010 SS Camaro that I think was 450, so it was probably 350 at the wheels,
Mm.
and that was plenty of fun.
Mm.
I mean, it wasn't ridiculously fast, but I mean, it could definitely get me in a bind if I didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And now you take that and double it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and for me, even if I wasn't an insurance agent, like if I was going to buy something like that, I would want to know how to handle it.
Yeah.
Now I've got a really good friend of mine. I bought a Hellcat back earlier this year, and I've got a good friend of mine that works for the federal government, I will say, and he allowed me access to his skid pad.
Hmm.
He's an instructor, and
Wow.
we take care of our people.
Nice.
And I took my Hellcat out there on their skid pad, and it's where they teach officers how to do pit maneuvers.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, man, if I'm gonna buy this car, I want to know, like, if I want to put it into some positions and situations to where I want to know what it's going to do.
Correct. Have a little more expectation.
Yeah.
Like how controllable is the car if
Yep.
X, Y, and Z
Yep.
scenario is into place.
Yep.
Roger. I understand.
Yep. It was a lot of fun. I went through 3 sets of tires.
3 sets of
It
tires.
was a good time. It was a good time. It was a good time. I went through 3 sets.
Traction control was not on.
No, it was not. It was not on. For a very little bit, it was on, and then after that, it was off. It was a good time.
Okay.
But everybody should do that, especially if you're getting into these McLarens, the Lambos, the Ferraris. I mean, when you're getting into that stuff, man, especially if it's your first one.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you just should.
I wonder. I don't really know the McLaren community much. I don't really know a lot of McLaren owners, actually. I've maybe met like 2.
Okay.
So I wonder how their thought on these cars are versus how Lamborghini owners. I feel like, and I'm just saying this because like I've been to some Lamborghini rallies or events with a lot of Lamborghinis, and I just see like the Lamborghini owners, they're taking the car to go.
Yeah.
I just don't know, like, if I were to imagine the Ferrari owners, they seem like they're gonna hang out at the parking lot and have some coffee. I no offense, I'm not saying like I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying like this is what I picture.
Right.
Maybe it's like maybe it's from videos, or it's from what I'm witnessing at cars and coffee events.
Mm-hmm.
In all these states that I've been in and have gone to, the Ferrari owners, they're really chill.
Mhm.
They just come to talk and showed
Yep.
up, and
Yep.
then they're gonna go home now and
Yeah.
finish whatever they're doing at the house.
Yeah. So eh, for for me, again, not throwing anybody under the bus here, but I think I think Lamborghini owners buy their cars to enjoy. And I think if something breaks, we just fix it and we go on.
Mm,
I think McLaren owners, to a point, are um, they're a little bit more. I would say docile, maybe,
mhm.
with their cars. They don't seem to want to abuse their cars, and I think it's maybe because they know that won't handle it. I don't know. Just saying. But I mean, those cars, like the reliability issues with those cars
Yeah,
are very well known, even if you're not in the McLaren community.
yeah,
And of course, nothing on those cars are cheap. Now, I
right.
will say, of course, McLaren is a relatively new car company, so they still are working through a lot of the quirks,
Mm,
and I mean, they had that P1 many, many, many years ago, but it really wasn't until the last 6, 7 years with the MP4 that they
mm,
really started to kind of like get into the game. So I think as time goes on, those reliability issues will get worked out. But right now, I mean, I think it's just they're just worried. I think a lot of those guys are just happy they get to Cars and Coffee in their
yeah,
car. But the Ferrari guys, yeah, I mean, listen, they want to drink their Starbucks and talk about their stocks and then go home and play golf.
mm,
And there's nothing wrong with that either. Um, but for me, I don't care if I owned 5 cars or 50 cars. I would want to drive them all.
mhm.
Cars, they're art,
Yeah,
but it's art that's meant to be driven.
yes,
You know, um, and I can't speak for you, but for me, man, the coolest thing is having 10 kids a day want to take pictures.
oh yeah,
That's like, because I was that kid. Like that's like the coolest thing in the world to me. I mean, when we was driving down here, I mean, good God, I mean, I can't tell you how many people was wanting me to rev the car, or want me to slow down to take pictures, or people throwing their give me a thumbs up out the window.
yeah,
And that's the cool thing,
yeah,
because for a lot of those people, they've never seen a Lambo.
yeah,
I know for me, I mean, I grew up in rural Eastern Kentucky. Uh, Trust me, I mean, I'm 40 now, but I mean, I think I was 29 or maybe even 30 before I seen my first Lambo in person.
oh really?
Yeah, because it just really wasn't something that was there.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody had a pickup truck, and it was farm, right? I mean, we pulled and set tobacco plants, and we farmed all day, and we worked from sun up to sundown.
nice.
So it's just, um, but that's the cool part for me, man, is the
Mm,
cars, like just the kids.
yeah.
I mean,
It's like you're doing something to provide motivation for them to work hard
oh
and
yeah,
strive for.
yeah. I mean, I didn't have running water till I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I grew up insanely poor. I mean, I used to have a running joke that like Christmas come in February, March when mom and dad got their tax money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up very poor.
And this is because of the farmer lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, it was just yeah, I mean, it was just there's just not a whole lot to do in Eastern Kentucky for work.
Mm,
And I got a lot of motivation from my mom. My mom passed away in 2014, but my mom had breast cancer not once but twice, and made it both times. But I can remember being 10, 11 years old, and mom having chemo, and then going to work at her minimum wage job at a sewing factory.
really?
Yeah, I mean, so I just remember thinking there was a lot of, as I grew up, I remember thinking, okay, one, it's got to be better than this, right? It's got to be better than this. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to do it, but I know that it's got to be better. And then there's never an excuse that I'm going to have as to why I can't go to work, right? I'm too tired, I'm too sick, right? Because I'm watching my mom go to radiation, right? Chemo,
Mm,
and then go to work. So it's like, if she can do that, then I I just need to hush, right? I
mm,
just need to be quiet, right?
mhm.
Because if she's not taking a day off, then what am I doing asking for one, right? So, um, but but yeah, I mean, it's just there just wasn't a whole lot to do, and like a lot of kids. I mean, I had a Countach poster on my wall as a
Mhm.
kid, right? And I can remember many, many birthdays where it's like blow the candles out and wish. And every year I wanted a Lambo, and it just never did show up in my driveway. It was the craziest thing. It just never did show up. A couple of years I got I got birthday cake with a Lambo on it,
Yeah,
right? I got
yeah,
a couple Hot Wheel cars, right?
yeah.
Um, but but yeah, I mean, it's just I just knew that I just knew I wanted a better life. I
Mm,
didn't know at the time what that was going to take, but I just knew that wasn't it, and it was weird, because you don't know what you don't know,
yeah.
and so both my parents, were high school dropouts, right? So of course they can't teach me the importance of going to college or
Mhm.
having good credit or any of the things because they didn't have those things,
Mm.
you know.
I
So
wonder if we could change the culture instead of saying, "All right, make a wish, blow the candles out." It's say, "All right, manifest,
yeah,
manifest. Put
yeah,
that picture up there,
yeah,
blow it out."
yeah.
Hey, from that blow, those lights, those candles are out. Here forward, you're going to take steps in
Yeah.
action and go towards that vision you have up here.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, I started my own business in 2018. Um and I'm going to tell you, the amount of work that I thought it was going to take and the amount of work it actually took are two completely different numbers.
Is this the insurance
Yeah.
business?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it was so much. There was many weeks there where it was 100, 105, 110 hour work weeks.
Wow.
I mean, absolutely getting it because I didn't know. I mean, like a lot of people, and I guess to kind of give you some backstory here. So I was going through a divorce, and my mom, when she passed away, I'll save you the details on everything. But when she passed away with no life insurance.
Mm,
And so I was going through this god awful divorce, right? It was nasty and it was messy. And but when my mom passed away, my mom didn't have life insurance, and so of course that burden was on me to take care of the final arrangements, right? And so I was blessed in the fact that I had the money. I had the money, but I didn't have the money, right? I had the money saved up, but I wasn't really wanting to spend it for that because I was going through a divorce, and my attorney was, 300, 400 bucks an hour. But so when I took care of everything with my mom and the dust kind of settled on some things, I remember thinking about like my work life balance because at that point, I was probably making 75, 80 grand a year. I mean, I was doing okay. I mean, definitely wasn't in a profession that was going to get me a Lambo by any means, but
mm,
I wasn't worried about how my mortgage was getting paid or my credit cards was getting paid or my kids was eating or any of that stuff. But the issue that I had was I worked a lot. And so, I have two daughters. And so my support system with my mom was gone. So when I lost my mom, I lost my support system. And so I was like, all right, I got to figure this work life balance thing out. And so um, I got into life insurance because I realized that I could set my own hours and I could be my own boss to a point, and there was really nobody over me kind of harping at production numbers or quotas or
mm,
anything like that. But I also got into it because I didn't want if I could help a family not have to go through what I had to go through, right? Then that being of service part, then I was like, okay, like this is that because that makes me feel good as a person, right? Being of service, right? So I done that for several years, and then ended up getting into the property casualty side of it. So the home and auto and the boats and those things. But understand that when I got into the property casualty side of the business, I'd never done it before,
mm.
right? So a lot of people, when they start a business, they've probably already got experience doing the business, right?
Mm,
Like
okay.
so it wasn't like I worked with, Geico for 5 years or
Mm,
State Farm for 5 years. It ain't like I worked with some big juggernaut and said, and there was some big falling out with management. I said, okay, I'm just forget it. I'm going to go do my own thing.
mhm.
I literally didn't know anything about it
Wow.
and said, all right, I'm going to do the deal. And so I jumped. I mean, I jumped from a 75, $80,000 a year job. I invested, Lord, well over 100 grand into this business that I'd never done. Um, all the furniture, I like working my hands. All the furniture in my office is all built. I built all the furniture in my office.
Really? Nice.
Because I wanted it to, like when you walk in, I didn't want it to feel sterile, right? I didn't want it to feel like a doctor's office. I
Yeah.
wanted people to be able to walk in and be at home and, things like that. And I wanted it to be different and wanted it to be unique because I'm different and I'm unique, right? Just as you are, right? So I wanted that to be a representation of me. But, I dumped all this money into it. And, I think the first month in business, I think I actually lost like $800.
Wow.
I went backwards. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, this is a bad idea. This was awful. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
But some of the motivation for that though was at my prior employer. I knew that some of my old coworkers was taking over under bets on whether or not I was gonna be back in 90 days.
Oh no.
I knew they were. I was like, okay, all right.
Well, that kind of gives you a little more feel.
Oh yeah, it definitely put the chip on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Right. Now, of course, I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's just, but I got into it because of my mom. If things hadn't happened the way that things had happened with her, then I probably don't do that, and I'm probably not here. But I wouldn't change it for the world because now I jokingly tell anybody that meets me now, I'm absolutely unemployable. Like, there's no way I could work for somebody else now. There's no way. If I hired on tomorrow somewhere, there'd be bro. No, I'd probably be fired by lunchtime. I probably would, but because I just have such a confidence now about myself, right? Because it's like, once you figure something out, and I'm sure you're that way, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure like there's, when you're learning how to work with titanium probably for the first time, right? Like you're probably, oh, wow, this is probably completely different than aluminum.
Correct.
Right?
It is. Yeah.
And then when you figure that out, you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
And then you're probably like, what else can I build with this?
Yes.
And then and then you are where you are, right?
Yeah.
But you don't get there if you just quit when it gets hard.
Correct. I remember a specific time where I almost, I had built up so much frustration and anger with welding when I was trying to learn by myself. This was during the COVID lockdown time.
Okay. Yeah.
I was a recruiter up in Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife was in basic training. So I was in this state that, for long story short, in recruiting, everyone is a candidate. Like everyone from 17 to 35 is a candidate to join. So like the recruiters have to have a separation. So anyone that was cool in that state, I couldn't be friends with them. Like I couldn't hang out with them
Okay.
because of them being a possible new recruit.
Right. Yeah.
So like, it was kind of a very lonely time, especially with the lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and that was the time when I started to, like, that's one time I sat down, buckled down and went through the path of learning how to weld. And, I wasn't going to a school. There was no school to go to.
Right.
It was just me, myself, my cats, and me in the garage.
Sure. Right.
Trying to decipher what the F people are saying on YouTube, and then reading on Google search and like, why are my welds crusty and gray? And it was like 3 weeks of this.
Yeah, where you got to teach yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't freaking figure out,
Yeah.
the gas coverage and the different type of add-ons on my torch that I could get, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a point where I was almost like, I just can't get it. I'm not gonna go forward with it.
Yeah.
But I told myself now is the time, honestly, because I had a TIG welder since 2016, and then I lugged it around for like 3 years at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up getting into like four-wheeling, off-roading. So I sold it off for a four-wheeler.
Okay.
And then about a year and a half later, I ended up buying another one. And that was just right in line with whenever COVID lockdown happened. So that's when I was like, you know what? I've looked at this route, and I'm finally going down this route. Yeah, almost gave up looking back all these years, like through that experience, getting to the edge where like I'm ready to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
Looking back and just seeing like what has come from it from not throwing in the towel and giving up on that.
Yeah.
Like it's confidence building. And now whenever I'm on like Facebook, TIG welders for beginners, and I'm
Right.
seeing, I'm just scrolling through, and I can see people's welds, I'll shoot them a personal message because
Yeah.
I don't want the comment in there on the comments where everyone
Right.
sees like, hey, you're going about the wrong way. I don't want to bash you or anything like that. I'll go to the personal message,
Right.
say, hey, if you would like, some tips and tricks, let me know if you're open to it. Some people are not open to it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're like, well, actually, no, I like the
Yeah.
way I'm doing it. So like, all right, whatever, you can do it your way. That's
Sure.
fine.
Yeah.
Like I've had those conversations, but anyone that's absorbent and willing to get better,
Yeah.
I'll give them, some time, 30 minutes, 40 minutes here and there, show them some videos and help develop, because I don't want them to get there to this edge where they're just like, you know what, I'm done,
Right.
because so much can come from it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I went through. So, when I started my business in 2018, I started toward the end of 2018, right? So,
Mm,
November 5th of 2018 actually makes 5 years. And so, of course, the first 12, 13 months of that, I'm just getting my bearings about me, right? I'm just figuring a lot of things out. I'm putting in a lot of time. Not a great deal of payoff yet, right? As far as from a monetary perspective, right? Not earning a ton of money at this point. But I'm just picking up so much knowledge, right? And then COVID hits.
mm,
And I was like, ooh, man, this is not good.
yeah.
This is not good. And thankfully, financial services was deemed to be essential, which I'd already made the decision I was going to work anyway. I was just like, man, I got to work. I got bills to pay.
Yeah.
Like, I got to work. I don't care if I got to hang from a treetop somewhere. My Wi-Fi might be a little better, but I'm going to
Yeah.
work. But I grew so much, and what was so funny was I was in a lot of Facebook groups, like with insurance professionals,
Mm,
and I thought that what I was doing, everybody in the game was doing. That's what I thought. And I quickly realized that I'm an anomaly with work ethic that I have
mm,
and what I'd accomplished, 6 months in, 12 months in, all those things. And so, right as COVID hit, I was ready to actually start hiring, because at that point I was a one man show. At that point, I'd done everything myself. I didn't have an assistant. I didn't have a receptionist. I didn't have a secretary. I didn't have any other agents in my office. I
mm,
didn't have anybody doing admin, clerical. If there was something that needed to be done in that office, I was the one doing it, or it didn't get done.
mm,
And so I started having a conversation with my property manager where my office is at, and there was a spot, there was another unit behind my office that would basically almost triple the space.
mm,
And we started talking about building that out to accommodate additional staff.
yeah.
And I remember when COVID hit, he sent me this text and he said, hey, do you want to wait until this COVID thing blows over before we start on this or sign this lease?
Mm.
And I was like, how long do you think it'll take? I still have texts. He said, how long do you think that'll be? He's like, 3-4 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And of course, now of course we laugh, but my answer to that was no. Like, I want to go, because the one thing that COVID showed me was really truly, call it what, this is my opinion, is how lazy people are. It really, like, because, well, let me phrase that. In the insurance genre, in the insurance industry, because people was, of course, in our industry, you can work from anywhere in the world,
Mm,
right? Like, you don't got to be tied to an office.
correct.
I mean, I could be going down the road riding in the passenger seat, and I got a hotspot and a computer. I can do my job no different than I can if I'm at my desk, right?
Yeah.
I could do that job on a yacht. I don't got to be tied to my brick and mortar,
Mm,
right? And there were so many of these agents that was just like blaming COVID for things. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. It's like, okay, cool. Don't do it. I will.
mm,
And we come out the backside of that. Like, I think my business grew almost 700%
wow.
in 2020. Like, we lit it up.
So there was an opportunity during that COVID time,
Yeah.
and you were
Oh,
able to
yeah.
overcome
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone hit a dead end
Yeah.
and an obstacle, and they were like, "Whoop!
Well,
I guess I
because
can't do
well,
nothing."
because in my opinion, it gave people permission to be lazy.
Hmm.
it gave people permission to not perform at their highest level.
Mm.
It gave them that permission to say it's okay to fall short because there's this other thing, right? And honestly, like I when I say we grew, I mean I completely changed everything because I was like, all right, this is the time, like, because I believe that you get, if you're lucky, you might get one of these opportunities in your life. I was like, all right, this is the one. Like, I've got to make this capitalize. I don't know if this is going to be 60 days. I don't know if it's going to be 90 days. I don't know if it's going to be 2 years. I don't know, but I know I need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so, before COVID, I was working, I was probably working like, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., right? I was working 12 hours, right? But then when COVID hit, man, I cranked it up. I was getting in the office like 3, 4 in the morning. I mean, I was getting there like 3, 4 in the morning. I was working till like 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Like, I mean, I was, balancing things, between the kids and everything. But if I wasn't with my kids, dude, I was in that office.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd done that for like 2 years.
Mm.
Like, and because my thought on this was very simple, and I think this would apply to really anybody that watches this. I don't think the industry really matters, but so like in the insurance space, right? Like most offices are, they get there at 9, right? They open at 9, they're open 9 to 5, right? So employee A gets there at 9 o'clock, right? And they're going to hang around the water cooler for 5, 10 minutes. They're going to talk about the current events. They're going to talk about the game last night, the race this weekend, this new restaurant that opened, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. They're going to hang out for 10, 15 minutes, right? And then they're going to go to their office and they're going to sit there and they're probably going to spend another 5, 10, 15 minutes on social media and Instagram and all the other things. And then maybe they start checking their, voicemails, emails, things like that, right? And then, now all of a sudden it's lunchtime. Now it's lunchtime. So then they take an hour for lunch, right? They go and they eat way too much. Now they come back in a carb coma and they're zonked out of their brain, right? And then they come back and they work another couple hours and they go home and tell their spouse or significant other about how their day at work was so hard and they worked so much. And it's like, all right, so you were physically present for 8 hours, 9 hours, but how much work did you do?
Yeah.
3 hours, 4 hours, right? So I don't, when I'm at work, like, I don't even leave the office. So I'll take my food with me, and every day, for a better choice of words, I feel like I try to get 20 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So like if I can do 4 days of work in one, I've kicked my competition's tail all day. Right. Because I'm already, even if I just work 9 to 5, I'm still crushing them because I'm actually working, which is a hell of a concept. Right. Okay. The second thing is if I'm there more and I'm working, then there's that.
Yeah.
Then I'm not taking an hour for lunch because I'm bringing it with me. Right. So I'm not getting yanked down that rabbit hole. Right. And then next thing you know, I mean, like I've been in business for 5 years, but I feel like I have 15 years of experience.
Yeah.
Because I've just brought time forward. And that's the thing that people don't understand about business in general. It's just if you put time into it, you'll get great at it. It's just, but if you only do the work on the days that you want to do it, you ain't going to make it. Like, if you only went to the gym when you wanted to, you'd never go.
Correct.
It's
That's
just
correct. So,
but you just got to have that mindset, man. And then the more you do, the more you'll do. I told you before we started this, the only thing better than owning one Lambo is owning two. I've already, and I can tell you when I get not if, but when I get my second one, then I'll be complaining that I don't own 3.
Yeah.
And then it'll be 4, and then it'll be 5. Because the minute that you get complacent, the minute that you've told yourself that it's enough is the minute that somebody's going to take your spot. Because there's somebody gunning for you that you don't know it, but they're coming. They've got you're targeted. You just don't know it. I know there's people right now that hate me. Like they can't stand me. But I've never met a hater doing better than the person they're hating on.
Heard that.
I've never met one. So there's somebody out there that's going to want your spot. They're going to want your life. They're going to want your house. They're going to want your money. They're going to want your cars. They're going to want your significant other. Right? So it's like the minute that you stop giving 110%, it's the minute somebody's going to take your spot. And I've learned that. So, and but I'll tell you, man, it's hard to be the man that don't quit. It's super hard to be the man that don't quit.
Mm.
So it's just how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and I guess circling back to cars, I mean, when I first got my car, it really blew my mind. The question itself didn't bother me, but it really blew my mind how many people would just complete strangers, like cars and coffee, right?
Mhm.
I think you might know where I'm going with this,
100%.
but they just walk up to you and be like, "What'd you pay for it? How much did it cost?" And it's like, well, a lot, right? Or my answer, my favorite was, well, more than I care to admit, right?
Yeah.
More, whatever, right? I mean, but it's like, own a Lambo. It's a lot of money, right? But I started telling people, because I can't speak for you and your experience, but with my experience, traditionally that question is being asked by young adults,
Mhm.
right? That's the 16-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, the 20, 21, 22-year-olds, right? These cats that are just getting started, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I started changing my answer. And I said, that's the wrong question. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, does it really matter if I told you this car was $100,000 or $300,000? Does it matter?
Okay.
And they're like, well, I'm like, it's a lot of money either way, right? Well, yeah. I'm like, all right. So the question you should be asking these people, not just me, but because listen, there's people. I mean, there's 2 or 3 SF90s where I live.
Mhm.
Like I told you about Frank, that's got the Enzo and the like. Listen, like I pick his brain all the time, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, right.
But I tell these kids, listen, it's not the money, it's what did I do?
Yes.
Right? Like what did I do? Like the car is just a byproduct of
Yes.
what I do, right? Because let's be honest, you can make a lot of money doing anything,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Anything.
there's money anywhere. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just, like we was talking about my guy that comes and does mobile detailing. Dude's 22 years old. Dude makes almost $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
He's 22 years old and knocks the cover off the ball because he drives me to wash my cars
Mhm.
and anybody else for that matter.
Yeah.
Right? Dude's making 300 grand. Dude, do you know what I would have done with 300 grand at 22 years old? Lord have mercy. Like I'd had all the cars, or I'd had all of them that 300 grand would have got me. Right?
Yeah.
I'd had a Diablo.
Yeah.
I would have had a Diablo for sure. But it's learn from these people
Yes.
because if they got the car, they probably got the house. They probably got the house, right? They probably got the things that you want.
You're right. They have the car. They have the knowledge.
They have the knowledge.
The
Yeah,
knowledge and the
yeah,
experience,
yep,
and to regurgitate
yeah.
that.
I mean, it's rinse and repeat with this
Yeah.
stuff, right? And that's the hard part. It's just you once you figure it out, you're good. And here's the other thing: you just got to be right one time.
Mhm.
I mean, when I started, the property casualty side of my business, okay, it was very unorthodox because I'm big into side by sides, so like the Polaris Razors and the Can-Am X3s, the Maverick X3s, and all those things. And I've been into that for years. I've owned a lot of them. I've wrecked a lot of them. I've replaced a lot of parts on them. There has been a lot of good times had out in the woods with some of my very close friends with these things. And when I started the business, I remember one night I was laying in bed and I was scrolling Facebook, and I wish I could find this post because I owe this gentleman a great sum of money. But he asked a very simple question, and it was, "Where's the best place to buy tires, or where's the best place to get a winch or a light bar?"
Okay.
It was something,
Mhm.
right? And I was like, "Hmm, insurance." Because my thought here is if people have 20, 25, $30,000 machines,
Mhm.
then they probably have decent credit, right? They're probably doing okay.
Mhm.
They probably own their house, or they probably have a couple nice cars. They're probably married.
Mhm.
If you are in a position where you can have a $30,000 toy, you're probably financially responsible, right? And those are, my clientele. Like that's the type of customer that I want to work with is people who have, in theory, everything together. Of course, it
Mhm.
don't always work that way, and people that have it together fall apart later. But in theory, like that's like the niche, right? And so I started scrolling. I started going back in some of these Facebook groups. I started just keyword insurance,
Mhm.
and there was nobody there. I mean, there was your typical suspects, right? Hey, call State Farm or call, the Lizard, right? Call Geico, call Flo,
Yeah.
whatever, the typical suspects. But there wasn't like that authority figure. There wasn't call Kenny.
So there was like no subject matter expert getting
There
involved in the
was
conversation.
there was no SME. No,
Okay.
there was no person there. There was companies, but there was no person.
Mhm.
And I remember laying there, and I was just like, this is dumb enough to work. Like, this is crazy enough that I might be able to pull this off. And then I started going through stats, and I started just looking at stats, and then I started creating a business plan. The next thing you know, I'm like, well, man, I'm too far into it now to turn back. Right. And I'm like, I guess I'm going to do this thing. And then I did it. But it's scary. It is scary. It was scary. I mean, because I was, one of the scariest, but yet one of the most fulfilling things that you can ever do in your life is bet on yourself.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean, because if you ain't going to believe in you, nobody else is going to. Right. And so and so for me, I was like, man, this is nuts, because literally everything in my life was riding on it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if this thing went down, it was going to take everything with me, or it was going to take everything with it.
That's like the sink or swim.
Oh, it was very much sink or swim, and I can't swim. No, legit, I can't swim.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was just like, this has to work. And so I knew that if I put a bunch of time into it, I knew I'd have a better shot than if I just tried to approach it from an 8 to 5 perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a wild ride. It's hard to believe it's already 5 years.
How long?
5
5 years.
It's already it's already been 5 years, and it's just, I feel like just yesterday it was just like day one.
I got to ask you about the life insurance, because in the Army it's such a hot topic.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to update the SGLI and in your coverage and make sure the information is correct on where the beneficiary is going to be, or who the beneficiary is going to be, right?
Yeah.
And their point of contact. It's just like the line of work that we're in, right?
Oh yeah. Police officers too.
Yeah. It's just like kind of like nobody wants to talk about it, and like just, I guess, like I can ask a question here, and then this video is going to ride them into it. Are you seeing? There's a couple questions I have about it. Are you seeing people scrambling to get life insurance whenever it's already like a bad time to scramble for it, or like at what point are you seeing people coming to you about life insurance?
They definitely come when they're scrambling.
Okay.
Life insurance is one of the most unique things in the entire world from a consumer's perspective. There's things that I see that from an adult, forget being an insurance guy, from just a pure adulting perspective, that I can't wrap my mind around. The bulk of the people that I see or that I conversate with about life insurance, they're coming to me after something's already happened.
Okay.
Meaning, their aunt's passed away, and their aunt didn't have life insurance, and so now they want to pick some up, right? Very, very rarely is it, hey, I bought a house and I probably need to get some life insurance to offset this if something happens, because my wife's the breadwinner and I'm not, or whatever it is. So, but also in the same token, when COVID hit and everybody started kind of tightening up on their finances, life insurance was also one of the very first things that was getting canceled. Was, people calling and saying, hey, I need to cancel that, I can't afford to pay it. Because, obviously life insurance, it's very unique in the fact that it's not required, right? Like you're not breaking any laws by not having it. But there's a 100% chance that you're going to use it. Father Time is undefeated, right? So, and so what ends up happening is, there's people that will go out, and every September, right, the new iPhone hits and people are standing in line to get that iPhone, and they'll pay an extra 30, 40, 50 bucks a month on their phone bill with AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, whoever it is. But yet that same person will say, I can't afford 50 bucks a month for life insurance. There's people that'll go out and spend $2,000 a year on Jordans, but yet would be like, I cannot afford to pay $2,000 a year for my life insurance. I know I'm married and I know I have 2 kids. I know I'm married and I got 3 kids. I know I'm married and have 3 kids and have $400,000 in debt, but I can't afford to pay that. They don't want to live within their means. And life insurance is one of those things where you got to have it. I mean, especially if there's children involved. I mean, if there's any type of debt involved. I done a financial analysis the other day for a couple. He makes $10,000 a year as or $10,000 a month. I'm sorry, as an engineer, and she makes $3,100 a month at these. And she's a teacher, right? So she works for the Board of Education, right? But obviously, he's the breadwinner.
Mm.
Okay, they've got a $2,000 a month mortgage,
Mhm.
and they got $1,800 a month in cars.
Mhm.
All right, if something happens to him, she's got to put a for sale sign in the front yard.
Mhm.
She doesn't make enough money to cover the bill,
Mm.
right? And he's like, "Well, that's just too much money." I'm like, "Well, which bill do you want?
Yeah.
Like, which one do you want?" So, and then the other thing is people run from it like the plague, right? Because nobody likes to talk about death.
Yes.
And I'm gonna be real clear. I'm the same way. It absolutely petrifies me.
Mm.
I don't like imagining a life where I'm not around my friends and my family.
But it's inevitable.
It's
It's 100% inevitable.
yeah,
It's the only
yeah,
thing that's 100%.
yeah. Well, and that's what I said. It's Father Time is undefeated.
Mhm.
So, but that goes back to what we were kind of talking about earlier, which is you just got to do it once and do it and be done with it.
Mhm.
And then you're done. Then, again, if you need a review in a few years, do the review.
Mhm.
But there's so many people that never get to the point of a review. The other thing that I highly, 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 highly suggest is get a policy that you own and that you control. Um, a lot of people, they have it through their work, and that's great. Have it through your work, right? Your position, obviously, a little bit different, but people that have quote unquote normal jobs, right, don't work for the government and all the things, you want to have a product that you own and control. And a perfect example of this is Sears and Roebuck, right? Sears was an absolute retail juggernaut, right? They were just an absolute retail juggernaut, and then they went out of business.
Mhm.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is when they went out of business, all those people that were retired,
Mhm.
they lost their incomes, they lost their pensions, they lost their life insurance benefits, they lost all that stuff.
Really?
So now you've got people that put 30, 40 plus years into a company, and now they're, 60, 70, 80 years old,
Uh-huh.
right? And now they can't get life insurance because they're either too old that they don't qualify, or they don't qualify medically, or they can't afford it. So they put all this time, effort, and energy into a company, and the benefits are now gone because the company's not there to support it,
Mm.
right? But if you have a policy that you own, that you control, meaning you pay the insurance company, and you don't have it through an employer or anything like that, then guess what? It's very simple. You pay the premium, you have the coverage. It doesn't matter if you change jobs 18 times over the course of your
Mhm.
working career,
Mhm.
right? So you always want to have that there. Now, I would also encourage that, if you work for an employer and they offer life insurance and benefits, I would encourage that, they do that, because listen, those policies are so cheap because obviously the employer picks up such a large portion of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at that point, the price is so cheap, it's almost like you're renting the policy, which to a point you kind of are. That's why it's so cheap. Some of them offer, convertibility options where if you leave the employer, then, you can convert that over and things, but not a lot of people do it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, of course, that just depends on how the master policy was written to begin with. But always want to try to have something that you own and that you can control.
Can you have 2 or
Oh,
multiple?
yeah, you can. I mean, like I have like 6.
Okay, so
Yeah, you can. I mean, I've got multiple life insurance policies with multiple life insurance companies. Yeah,
so
yeah, for sure.
how does someone determine on what kind of coverage or policy that they need for life insurance?
Well, the first thing is going to be what's the goal,
Okay.
right? What's the goal? For some people, obviously somebody who's 60 years old, their needs are probably going to be a little bit different than somebody like you or I that's
Mhm.
working every day, that has a family and has debt, or I presume you have debt. I don't know, but I know I do. So, So for somebody that's 65 years old that's got through and got their house paid off, and maybe they're now an empty nester, right? Their kids are raised and they're out of the house. Now they just may need a simple, 15, 20, $30,000 final expense policy, just like a burial policy that just kind of takes care of some of the loose ends, so that when something does happen, the family's not having to, come up with that money. For somebody like us, which I always do a financial assessment with everybody anyway. But for somebody like us, I could sit here right now and do a financial assessment with you, and I may say, well, based off what you've told me, you need 1.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then we work through that. The other thing is, obviously you get into the budgets and what people are wanting to pay and comfortable paying and things like that. But, you just got to look at it. And, if you have kids, that comes into play. If you're going to need a different amount of life insurance if your kids are 15 and 16 versus if they're 3 and 4. Because if something happens to you now and they're 3 and 4, then in order for them to maintain that same quality of life without you in it, that means that there's going to need to be additional premium or additional coverage there, right? As opposed to if they're 15, 16, 18.
So would the kids incur the parent's debt if the parent passed away without a life insurance coverage?
No. Well, so the debt at that point becomes part of the estate. So if there's any assets, then those assets are sold to pay off any of the debt.
Uh-huh. And what happens to the remaining balance of the debt if the assets don't cover it?
Well, that gets it depends on a lot of other things. I have seen situations where they do go after family. It's not the most common, but I have seen it happen, depending on, again, contracts and the type of debt and things like that. But most of the time, it just ends up being written off.
Okay.
I've seen it go both ways. But if you've got assets and there's equity in those assets, yeah, they're going to come after all of it.
So, for someone to consider this for themselves, every single person is different. It's not like, hey, this is like what you stated on the cars, right? It was like 100, 300, 100
Right.
or whatever. Every person, they have their own unique, specific, special situation and a value that they have to assess themselves versus they have a 1 car in an apartment versus 3 car in a house or 3 car and 3 houses.
Right.
Everyone's number is going to be different. So they have to do a self-assessment on their
and that's that's arguably one of the I don't want to say frustrating things with what I do, but we'll provide somebody a quote and it's $200 a month and be like, well my friend has insurance with you and he's only paying 76 or whatever. And of course it's I tell people that insurance is no different than car payments. It's no different than mortgages, right? You could have a $3,000 a month mortgage and I could have a $2,000 a month mortgage, but that doesn't mean we live in the same house.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. You could have a $500 a month car note and I could have a $500 a month car note, but that doesn't mean we drive the same car.
Yeah.
You could own a Lamborghini for $500 a month if you paid enough down or had a trade-in, right? You could, in theory, have a $500 a month Lambo note if the financials lined up.
Yeah.
My $500 a month note may be a Nissan Altima. So, so there's just so many things that go into it. There really are. And the one thing that I've noticed over the years is there's a difference between ignorance and stupidity, right? Right? In my opinion, you correct me, tell me what yours is, but in my opinion, ignorance is when you just don't know, right? You're just not aware. And stupidity is knowing and just not caring, right? Stupidity is just like, I know the stove is hot, but I'm still going to touch it anyway.
Correct.
Right? So, a lot of people, they don't work with someone that takes the time to give them the information to make a correct and informed decision. I have earned so many clients over the years, not because I'm cheaper, but because I take the time to explain to them, this is what happens if this happens.
Yeah.
This is where you're at. Like, I mean, I literally told a client on Thursday before I got ready to make the trip down here that I was reviewing their policies, and I straight up looked at them and I was like, "You're one accident away from financial suicide." And they're like, "What are you talking about? I have full coverage." I'm like, "Yeah, okay.
Mm.
See these numbers? That's not what those numbers mean." And by the end of the deal, they were just like, "Holy cow, we didn't know," and they was ready to go punch their other insurance agent in the face, like
Oh,
because
yeah.
they were just like because they've been with the guy for like 18 years,
Mm.
and they're just like, "Man, we just been paying this guy," and I'm like, "Well, find yourself blessed and all the good things
Yeah.
that you didn't have to find out the hard way."
Yeah.
Right. So, because the other side of it is that there's a lot of insurance agents that just sell a price, right?
Yeah.
And people just assume that, okay, it's an insurance agent. So if he says I have full coverage and it's $200 a month, and I have full coverage and it's $200 a month, right? They take and they're ignorant, right?
Mm.
But it's they take the advice and they pay it. But it's like this: not all doctors are good doctors. Not all accountants are good accountants,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And not all agents are good agents. And there's some of them that don't have the confidence in, there's some of them that don't have the confidence in, call it what it is, their salesmanship.
Uh-huh.
They don't have the confidence in their communication skills, their relationship skills to do that.
Yeah.
And there's some of them that, and I've said this, the way you think about money is the way you're going to talk about money. Okay. So, interesting fun fact: the average insurance agent in the United States of America earns $42,000 a year.
Okay.
On an average. Okay. So it becomes even more important to try to align yourself with somebody who is most like you.
Mhm.
Okay. So what I mean by this is, if if your average insurance agent's making $42,000 a year, they may not see the benefit of carrying a 100, 300, 100 policy because they live in mom's basement, or they live in a 1-bedroom efficiency, or they live in a 2-bedroom but they split rent.
So that they can't relate.
They can't relate,
Okay.
right? It's the same thing with like with the side by sides and things like that. If you got somebody, and again, I don't mean this in any type of way, but if you've got an atypical insurance agent that's making $40,000 a year, they can't relate to somebody spending $35,000 on a side by side to take it out in the woods to beat the crap out of it to drink beer. They just can't do that. They don't understand the guy that spent $70,000 on the diesel truck and then turned around and spent $10,000 on the enclosed trailer and then spent $6,000 on the trailer to make it what he wanted it to be. Then bought the side by side for $35,000
Mm-hmm.
to then take it out in the woods and then have to spend $3,000 on the way home on parts because he just broke them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They can't relate to that. It's the same thing, right? Like, you're trying to buy a Lambo, you're trying to buy a McLaren, you're trying to buy a Ferrari, you're trying to buy whatever the car is. The guy driving the Honda Accord, no disrespect to that, but there's just not going to be that level of communication there because the ideologies just aren't the same.
Okay.
It's just because again, somebody's spending $200,000 on a Lambo, the guy that's writing the policy might not even live in a $200,000 house.
I see what you're saying.
So the probability of those things being correctly insured go significantly down just because the agent doesn't have the confidence or the knowledge.
Mm.
And then two, there's a little bit of a fear factor in that, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh man, this, like, how do I want to say this? It's, it's this person is way beyond me. Like they don't even know how to have that conversation.
Okay.
They don't even know how to have that conversation.
Or they can't relate to how significant it is to have the proper coverage or
right. Yeah. I mean, I literally I insured a Lambo on Thursday, a 2010 560-4 Spider, balloon white, beautiful car. Guy lives in Nashville, and he told me, but he lives in the same building with like Chris Isaac and a bunch of stars. And he sent me a copy of his policy, and it was a state minimum policy with Geico.
Mm.
And this guy's living in a condo that's worth $3.5 million.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's nothing against Geico because at the end of the day, I'm sure they told him and he bought it and went on. But for me, I would never put my name on that.
Mm.
Yeah.
What does how many miles do you predict to operate the vehicle matter in there? Is that just a small percent? Like, is a P1 McLaren only plan on driving maybe 50 miles a year
Mm,
versus it's a P1 McLaren. I'm going to take it across the country, multiple rallies,
yeah,
probably 50,000 miles a year.
yeah.
Like, what is that? How much does that factor into the
It,
coverage or
when
insurance?
when you start talking about exotic cars a lot, when
Oh,
you
a
start
lot.
talking about your exotics, your supercars, hypercars,
Mm,
yeah, it matters, and yes, that absolutely matters, because you're increasing the risk, right? You're increasing risk.
yeah.
The probability of something happening to that P1 if it's being driven 30,000 miles a year is going to be significantly higher if it's only getting driven 3,000 miles a year.
Yeah.
It's just because at that point, it's not a matter of it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Mm,
At that point,
mm,
right? That absolutely matters.
okay.
Now, for instance, like with mine, I'll end up going back and readjusting mine. But when I wrote my policy, I put 3,000 miles a year.
Mm.
Well, I've already exceeded that. I'm already at 5,000 miles.
So what does it matter if you exceed that mileage? Does the insurance keep track of like, hey, you bought the car at
It-
5,000 miles and you put
yeah.
5,000 miles on it?
hmm
You said you're going to drive three.
Right. So in that situation, what would happen is if there's a total loss.
Uh,
Okay. So going back to my situation, so like my car is insured for 150,000. Okay. So what they would do is they would in essence give me a prorated amount of that. So they would basically depreciate that. So if I went over say a couple thousand miles, they would say, well, it was 150 grand if you would have stayed within your mileage allocation, but since you went over that, instead of a check for 150,000, it's 147 XXX
okay.
or something like that. So it doesn't mean that you're not going to be insured. It doesn't mean if something happens over that, then in essence you're not insured.
Mm,
It just means that whatever the settlement is would be adjusted accordingly for it.
okay.
Yeah. And then what they would do when renewal come up is there would be a conversation there about that because the way they look at it, and the reason that they prorate that is because they're saying that if your premium is $3,000 a year, but if you're paying 3 grand for 3,000 miles and you're going to go 6,000 miles, then you should have been paying 6 grand. You see what I'm saying? So the way so when they prorate that settlement back, that's just their way of getting
Oh,
that premium that should have been paid. That's just their way of getting that back.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So at any point, let's say the timeline goes of 10 years
hmm
and the person has never had any accidents, any tickets whatsoever.
hmm
Um, should the monthly cost go down like over at like you're just watching like, hey, now this year I only have to pay 1,800. Next year I only have to pay, or next 5 years later you only have to pay 1,500. Does time go by and prove that you're a good, safe driver, aware of your surroundings, and then you are compensated or appreciated by the insurance company and they charge you less? Does it work like that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So, and I'll put this out here too. One of the biggest myths is my insurance goes down when I turn 25. No, no, that's absolute hearsay. That's not true. That doesn't happen. I mean, we literally had a guy call the office 2 months ago, said, "Hey man, what in the world? I thought my insurance was supposed to go down when I turned 25." And I was like, "Bro, you just got a freaking DUI.
Mm,
Like, no, that's not, no, your insurance is going to go up. Yeah. Cause clearly you're not responsible at 25, right? You got a DUI. But no, I mean, yes, absolutely. So there's a handful of things there. So kind of going back to the conversation, right? So, the guy that's got the C8Z06,
mm,
right? The dude pays like 400 and something dollars a year.
that's great.
It's ridiculous, right? But he's in his late 50s, early 60s, maybe.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, he's the guy at Cars and Coffee with the fresh white New Balances, right? He's the guy that he opts out and he screams he's got an 850 credit score, right? He's the guy, right? With the blue jean denim shorts, like
Yeah.
he's the guy, right? But he's got 3 or 4 policies with me. He pays them all on time. He pays them all in full for the year. He doesn't do anything monthly. He doesn't get out here and act like he's trying to get a spot on the next Fast and Furious movie,
Mhm.
right? He's very aware of what he's doing. He's very responsible, right? And he's got again, $250,000 car,
Mm,
you know, but he pays less than what a lot of people pay for their 2014 Nissan Altima with liability only, right?
yeah.
Um, So as time goes on, yeah. And then of course, the other things is going to be, the value of the car,
Yeah.
right? Of course, in theory, the less the car's worth, then in theory, the less you'd pay for insurance. But there's all kinds of people that are paying less. I mean, again, like I said, I pay a couple $1,000s a year for my car, but I know people right now that pay more than that for, again, 2015 Durango.
Hmm.
So it definitely pays. It definitely pays to be aware and be responsible.
How is that electronic tracker in the car? How how does that affect the insurance? And is it recommended or does it not matter? You don't really have to go that route of being tracked everywhere you go at every mile per hour stop sign.
Telematics is a big thing.
Uh-huh.
That's what they call it. It's called telematics. Um, it can help you. A lot of the carriers have it written in a way to where it doesn't penalize you. So if they write the policy and you're paying $3,000 a year, and you opt into telematics and you go through the 60-day run, the 90-day run, and you send that back or whatever it is, and they determine that you can't drive at all. Okay, you're hard braking, right? You're heavy accelerating, all the things. Then in theory, you're still $3,000. So
Huh.
they've set that up, and the reason that they've done that is really twofold. Is one, they want people to participate because that's free data,
Yeah.
right? That's free data.
Is it okay?
So that's free data. So that's going to tell them, okay, the people that are doing this, right? This is the trends that we see. And then they can break that down even more so and say, well, Sally's a 25-year-old female. Sally's a 25-year-old married female. You know,
Uh,
Jeff is 31. Jeff's single. Jeff's married.
uh,
Jeff is, he's single, but he lives with his girlfriend, Sally,
okay.
right? Jeff is 32 and he's single, and Jeff lives in Chattanooga, Tennessee,
Uh-huh.
right? Then it can go into Jeff. Jeff is 32, single, lives in Chattanooga, and drives a 2020 Ram 1500
Mm.
or a 2022 Ram 2500. And then it gets crazy. That goes back into those variables. So then what happens is, the analytics, the underwriters, all the bean counters is what I call them, all the people that just sit in a room and just look at spreadsheets all day.
Yeah.
Then that's when you start seeing rate increases,
Oh.
right? Because then it's, okay, we got all these people and none of them can drive. Or they can drive just good enough to not wreck and kill a bunch of people,
Uh-huh.
right? And so then that's where you start seeing the rate increases. Because again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Okay.
And then not only, and now and a couple other things that have changed too is it's not, the older systems used to, like plug into your OBD port.
Yeah.
Now the new ones, a lot of them's just an app on your phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of them you just download an app on your phone, and it just data logs it for you, and it sends it back to the carrier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I mean, and those apps are crazy sensitive.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so I tried it because I mean, for me, it's like I can't really talk about it and give all the insight on it if I don't personally do it too,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I got to be my own guinea pig,
Uh-huh.
right? And it was, for me, it was not good.
Did
It was not good.
you do it into the Lambo?
I did. I did.
They got like 13-inch brakes, so like I could see like the scale being like, oh, he's a hard breaker.
Yeah, yeah, I tried it. So I have, so in my situation, it made sense for me to have, two separate auto policies. So I've got one for I got one for my Shelby truck. I got one for my Range Rover. I've got one for my, Cobra, and then the Hellcat or whatever.
Uh,
And then, I've got a separate one, which is more collector for the Lambo. And so I'd done it for both of them, both of the insurance companies. And I have a great, with my Lambo insurance, that's more like small. So my rep reached out to me and he was like, dude, you sitting down? I was like, yeah, man, what's up? He's like, dude, I just got this report back I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, what the hell? I was like, I mean, spirited. He's like, spirited for sure, man. He's like, Jesus Christ. And I was like, ah, it's a good thing you can't drop me, right? Um, but yeah, it's, it definitely helps. See that a lot with parents that have newly licensed drivers. So, little Bobby just got his driver's license. And of course, as you can imagine, insuring a new driver
Yeah.
is insanely expensive, right? So, the good student discounts are a huge play, so a lot of the carriers, 3.0 or better GPA, that's a huge help.
Nice.
But statistics show that 72% of newly licensed drivers, and newly licensed drivers is defined by someone that's been licensed within the last 3 years. So somebody with 3 or
Oh,
less years of driving experience.
okay.
Newly licensed drivers, 72% are involved in a catastrophic accident
Really?
within the first 3 years.
Mm.
So a lot of that's right, just obviously distraction, right?
Uh,
They're on their phones, texting, driving, they're Snapchatting, right? Social media,
yeah.
doing those things. So when mom's got a Jaguar and dad's got this and that and the other, obviously that makes their rates go to the moon,
Yeah.
because, the other side of it is, well, now he's only going to drive this 96 Dodge Dakota.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, listen, he's on the policy. He can drive any of them.
Hmm.
So you can't just exclude him from these three, but give him this one,
Okay.
But we see that a lot. A lot of parents will sign up for telematics because it just, one, it kind of helps keep their kid in check too.
Mm.
So it's kind of like a big brother without them needing to be a big brother, because
Yeah.
because the carriers will also send their reports to them.
Oh, okay.
So it'll let them know what they're doing.
Yeah. So that driver's like, everyone's seeing that I'm speeding
Yeah.
or not reckless is the right word, but they can see your driving characteristics.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's like, put myself on blast and drive the way I'm driving, or
Be an adult.
being subtle and
Yeah.
and responsible.
Yeah. So and here's the other crazy thing. The other crazy thing is that statistics show that when you have a newly licensed driver that is taken they've taken like the defensive driving courses, the student driver classes, and they have like a 3.0 or better GPA, that 72% actually goes to like 30, I think it's 31.
Oh, really?
It's significantly less,
They're more aware.
more aware.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so obviously, you can about imagine, that spread of what, 41 points or 42 points or whatever that is, the tens of millions of dollars that, these insurance companies are saving because they're not having to pay those claims out.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge. I mean, it's shoot, it could be billions of dollars at that point.
Okay.
But there's, man, there's just so many things, because it's also every state's different.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm licensed in 14 states. So, how things are done in Kentucky is different than how things are done in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
right? North Carolina, we've been seeing a ton of carriers declining homes because unless the roof is 4 years old or newer,
Hmm.
because of, the weather, right? You get, the hurricanes, tropical
Yeah.
storms, things like that. There's certain carriers that if you live within so many miles of coastal water, they won't write it.
Yeah.
Of course, you get into dogs. I mean, if you got certain, carriers have what they call aggressive breed lists. So like
Okay.
if you own, I'm just throwing some stuff out here, but if you have a pit bull, if you have a German Shepherd, if you have an Akita, if you have a Rottweiler, if you have, a Kanye Corso, some of these just monster dogs, like they're like, you have that on your property, we don't want no part of it.
Okay.
There's,
Is it because of biting, or is it because of digging holes?
oh, it's biting.
It's biting.
It's biting, yeah.
Okay. Well, then you should put Chihuahuas on there, because those little dogs, those little dogs are vicious.
Man, well, right, but traditionally, those those little ankle biters, man, they're not doing enough to hurt you.
Correct.
But we've got an open claim right now in the office, and this has been going on now for about a year and a half. So client invites brother and his wife and his niece to the house
Mhm.
to hang out, have some fun, and they come over. The client has a German Shepherd boxer mix. Okay, so it's a mixed breed dog, German Shepherd and Boxer. Dog bites niece.
Okay.
Bites her multiple times, gets her in the head. She ends up having to go to the hospital, and she got 10, 12 stitches.
Jesus.
Okay, yeah. All right. But obviously she's okay, made full recovery. Everything's good and well. Okay. Brother of client goes and gets an attorney and sued his own brother for this.
Okay.
And when it first started kind of coming about, the client actually sent me a notice of demand. It was from his attorney, from his brother's attorney. It was a notice of demand for $100,000. We're at, I think, 160 grand on this right now, and it's still not done.
Is it because of medical bills?
It's yeah. It's medical. It's pain. It's medical. It's pain and suffering. It's she's 10, so the thought there is, is there going to be any other pre-existing conditions that can come from this 2, 3, 4 years down the road?
Yeah.
There's a lot of those kinds of things.
Okay.
But we're at 160 grand on that right now.
Wow.
That's something else I see, like people's personal liability. I see a lot of that stuff, like 100 grand on a homeowner's policy, man, that should be at least 300 grand, if not $500,000. I mean, because again, if that guy would have had 100 grand right there, I mean, he's short 60.
Yeah.
We had a situation in Ohio where a guy was kind of cleaning up some debris and stuff around his house, some shrubs. He was trimming some branches, trimming some trees, and he kind of got everything toward the back of the property. And, he kind of lived in a rural area, and, he said, I'm just going to burn it. He said, I'm just going to burn my stuff here at the end of my property. So he sets it on fire, and he steps away for a minute to go grab him some water, comes back. The fire is spread into his neighbor's yard, and it's halfway up the neighbor's pole barn.
Dang.
Neighbor had a $90,000 pole barn, burned it to the ground.
Wow.
Personal liability paid that. There's a lot of stuff there that I see. See people all the time, and I haven't, and this hasn't got brought up on this, but I have an interesting perspective on homeowners insurance because I'm also a licensed mortgage loan originator. So I also do loans as well.
Okay.
I don't do a ton of them just because I'm so busy with my agency, but I am licensed to do that in Kentucky. Okay. And so something else that I see a great deal is what homes are actually insured for. So there's three numbers that when you're buying a home that you got to look at, right? One is obviously your sale price. You want to know what you're paying for the house. Yeah. 2, you want to know what the appraisal is, right? So you don't want to pay more than it's worth, right? But then the number that always gets missed is the replacement cost. That number always gets missed. So it's obviously, even before COVID, it was always cheaper to buy a home than build a home, right? It's always cheaper to buy than build, right? It just is, okay? But now, obviously, with everything that's happened with COVID and inflation and everything going to the moon, what we see right now on average is about $185, $190 a foot to build.
Okay, yeah.
So, so 1,000 square foot home in 2018 that would have been, in theory, about 100 grand to build is now 185, 190 grand. I mean, that's how much things have went up. So what happens a lot of times with mortgages, or homeowners insurance, I'm sorry, is a lot of times I'll see, because, I find myself competing against other insurance agencies and things like that all the time. And when I start looking at quotes, I see a lot of times that they've just insured the home for the loan versus the actual rebuild. So, and sometimes that doesn't get explained to the client, because, when you're buying a home, I mean, I've bought several and they never get less stressful. I mean, it's always like, there's always something, right? There's always, they need something, right? And so, so when the client's going through that, they're just like, yeah, whatever, man. They're just trying to check mark things off a list, right? Like, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And then they just go. And as long as the lender says they're okay, then they just take their lender's word at it, right? But I see it all the time. You got, somebody's buying a house for 205 grand, but to rebuild that house, if it burned to the ground tomorrow, it could be 285. But yet all insurance would pay would be 205. And so now here they are in that situation, they're short, 80 grand, and there's no way that they could rebuild the house that they fell in love with for 205. And now they've got to settle.
Okay.
see that all the time.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, and I've got a client right now that's in Ohio. I've had him for almost 5 years. I've had him since almost day one, and I'm going to lose him because he's moving to New Jersey, and I'm
Mm,
not licensed there.
mm.
But he's buying a $689,000 house, and they want the insurance to come back at $100 a month.
Oh,
And it's like, bro, you're buying almost a $750,000 house. Like,
mm,
it's not going to happen for $1,200 a month or $1,200 a year.
yeah.
Your insurance isn't that in Ohio. And Ohio is like the cheapest country or the cheapest state in the country for insurance.
Really, really?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, well, up there. I mean, listen, you're 71 and 70. You're getting pulled over and you're getting a ticket. That's what it is in Ohio. Ask me how I know. So I like to party, but leave me alone, okay? But seriously, 73 and a 70, they'll pull you and they'll write you a ticket.
Wow.
Kentucky, I'm friends with a lot of them guys. I'm friends with a lot of them state troopers, and they kind of operate under the premise of 10 you're fine, 11 you're mine.
Oh, really?
So if it's 70 and you're running 80, you're probably going to be okay. But you get much more above that, you're probably going to get a ticket. So, so there's a lot of things that kind of that play into this stuff that people, I think for the most part, just never, they just don't ever think about it.
Yeah.
They just, I got insurance and I pay the bill. One of the other things that I'll throw out there too that I didn't bring up is it's all the cool stuff, man. People like me and you, we can't leave anything alone, right? I mean, so, when you go out and you put, a super nice body kit on your car, you put, that carbon diffuser on there, you put those 3-piece wheels on there, you do the carbon fiber door cards,
Yeah.
you do the twin turbo kit, right? You got to let your agent know you're doing this stuff, because if you don't and you've got a claim, you're hurting, because it's presumed that you're just, like if you call me right now and you say, hey man, I bought a 2023 Ram 3500 mega cab dually.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if you go out here tomorrow and you put a set of, $25,000 JTX forged, 28s on it,
Mhm.
I'm not going to know you got those.
Yeah.
Well, if you get involved in a claim and you bend one, well, insurance isn't going to replace that wheel. Insurance is going to pay you what an OEM wheel would be.
Yeah.
We don't know, right? You throw a $20,000 turbo kit on one of these cars, we don't know it unless you tell us.
Okay.
We don't know, right? Put a $15,000 body kit on it, we don't know, right? You put a $10,000 sound system in it, we gotta know.
So does that makes it not covered?
Well, right, because if we don't know, now listen, we can add the coverage, right? Like, I mean, we can add that stuff. So like the Range Rover, right? Like the Range Rover I got, like it's wrapped, right? There's an endorsement that I put on there so that if something happens to it, there's coverage there that allows for that to be rewrapped. So repainted, whatever panel or panels needs to be resprayed or replaced, that gets repaired, resprayed, whatever, and then it also goes and gets rewrapped.
Okay.
And that puts me back to the condition that I was in prior to loss.
Yeah.
Right? But if you don't notify your insurance company of that stuff, it's just presumed that it's stock.
Yeah.
So, we just don't know.
I can see that.
And so, same thing with side by sides. Guys go out and put all these accessories and stuff on there. Same thing with their boats, right? I mean, if you put a $15,000 wet sounds, system on your boat, we need to know that that's on there.
Yeah.
Because if that thing sinks to the bottom of the lake, it's on you.
Yeah.
Or if it's still operable, you pull the stuff off and you put it on the next build.
It's waterproof.
Yeah, it should be, right? So those are some things too, because I mean, I can't speak for you, but man, if I had half of the money back that I've spent on accessories over the years, the wheels and the tires and the sound systems and all the things, I mean, my goodness.
Okay.
I mean, I'd be a lot. I'd have a lot of money. I'd have a lot more money than I got now. So that's the other thing, is people just don't take that stuff into consideration, as far as, I put $5,000 set of wheels and tires in my car, I should probably let my insurance agent know that. It's never a thought.
Is your Gallardo under a collector car?
Mm-hmm.
Is considered a collector car?
Mm-hmm.
How does that differ from just regular car insurance versus
Well,
exotic?
so a lot of it's all about the age,
Okay.
right? So the age, right? I mean, a collector car. I mean, if I went out here right now and I bought a 2023 Urus,
Mm,
right? That's not going to qualify because it's not collector. It's not, it's not old enough,
okay.
right? There's certain companies that won't even, like there's one that comes to my mind, American Collector. They're an insurance company that I work with,
Uh-huh.
and they do a lot of really unique stuff. They'll do obviously a lot of old stuff. They'll do some of the newer stuff, but they'll also insure like really wild things. Like I've got a guy that's got like I think it's 105 or $110,000 worth of Hot Wheels.
The little.
Yes, Hot Wheel cars that you pick up in Walmart for like 99 cents a pop.
Uh huh.
He's got like $110,000 worth of these things. He's hardcore. Like he goes to the conventions and picks up like limited edition Hot Wheels. And I was in his house and he was like, "Yeah, this one right here, you could only got that one at the convention, and I paid $105 for it, but now it's worth like $700 on eBay." And he's hardcore. They're all over his house.
He has collector car insurance on his.
It's a policy written through that company. But
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yeah.
My bad.
Um,
Okay.
uh, there's friends that I have. Of course, me being in the horse capital of the world, I'm also in the bourbon capital of the world.
Mm.
And yeah, and but I've got a guy that's got almost $200,000 worth of bourbon that they insured.
Wow.
He's got one bottle of Pappy Van Winkle that's worth like 40 grand.
Wow.
Yeah, I told him one day we got to open it. We got to see what's up with it. He won't do it though. But so like American Collectors, for instance, like they will insure. Like if I went out and I bought a 2023 Urus,
Uh,
they won't insure it. But if I've got an '05 Gallardo and I've got a '67 Fastback Mustang or '69, whatever years they made those, if I've got an '83 G body Monte Carlo SS and a '69 C10 as part of a collection, they would take the Urus,
okay.
but they won't take it if that's like the only car I got.
Okay.
Right? There's some companies that won't insure exotic cars if it's your primary car. So, like, if that's like your daily driver, they're like, absolutely not. We're out.
Okay.
Because
The
yeah,
opportunity,
it's just
chances.
it's nuts, right?
Yeah.
So you get into some of that, but you know, it's the collector thing is just age,
Okay.
really.
What's the threshold?
Usually what we see is 15 plus.
Okay.
Yeah. So that varies a little bit from state to state as far as like collector tags, antique tags. I think in Kentucky the car's got to be 20 plus years to be registered as like a historic vehicle,
Mhm.
maybe, or 25 years, maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, they'll do them like that.
Mm.
And then you get into weird stuff like, so for instance, like Haggerty. Anybody that's into cars, I think at some point's heard of
Yeah.
Haggerty
Have
Insurance,
to.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like Haggerty, I work with Haggerty as well, and they won't insure SUVs at all.
Really?
Mm-mm. If you call them and say, "Hey, I bought a Urus," they'd be like, "We don't care if it's $20,000 a year. We ain't going to insure it
Wow.
because that's just not their market."
Okay.
They don't care if you got 15 cars.
Yeah.
And one of them's a Urus, they'll be like, "We'll insure 14," and the Urus has got to go somewhere else.
Wow.
Yeah, they just won't even touch it. Yeah. So same thing with that. I can't remember the name of it, but the Maserati SUV, the Aston Martin. I'm sorry. The DB90 maybe or something. I can't
I
remember.
don't know the name.
But then we also did have a Maserati. I can't remember thing starts with an L. I can't remember, but not a big Maserati guy, so forgive me. But yeah, they just won't touch them.
Mm.
Just will not touch them with 10-foot pole.
Okay.
And that's wild because like that Aston SUV is $250,000. And it's up there. I mean, it competes all day with the Urus as far as money. I'd rather have a Urus, but
Yeah. I think the Uruses are cool.
man, they are. And those Mansory editions.
Oh yeah.
Oh God,
They do good work
I need one. You need one
in time. It's spoken of. It's just in time.
I need one.
They want to get out of the army first. But how can any viewers contact you and ask you, pick your brain, talk about policies?
Yeah, 859-353-5596 is the office number. Email is kennyrichmond@therichmondinsuranceGroup.com. You can find me on Facebook. I'm friends with this guy. On Instagram, it's krich1424. And we're licensed in 14 states. So I'll try not to mess these up. So we've got I got 14. I haven't got all 15 yet, but I got 14. So I'm licensed in Nevada, Texas, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky. So if you're in any one of those 14 states, on the personal side, home, auto, side-by-sides, exotics, I got 64 companies. Commercial, we got 207. And then on life insurance, I've got 61. So save you some time, hopefully save you some money and get you insured at the same time.
Yeah. So the big thing about these videos is like sharing the knowledge.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I've talked to other people about buying their car, right? The path that they've taken. And like, I don't even know how long the video is, but like just the information you're giving is like, it's turning my gears to reassess on certain things or adding to a policy. And it's going to help other viewers like better select their policies or better like actually know the right questions to ask whenever they're talking with you.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you have a question, especially when it comes to insurance, I mean, ask, because if you don't and something happens, at that point it's too late. You know, you can't go back, rewind it. You can't pay an additional premium and rewind it and get something covered. Insurance is very black and white. It's either you have it or you don't. And so it's just one of those things where you're better off to have it and not need it than, of course, to need it and not have it.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of times, you know, to kind of wrap this up, a lot of times too, people obviously say, well, I don't want to pay up to $1,800 a month or a year for insurance. And a lot of times it's not that way at all. So, you know, like when we were kind of talking in the beginning about the state minimums and stuff like that, and like going to that like 100, 300, a lot of people think that if they go from like, you know, a 25,000 per person to 100, that's a 75% increase, right? So a lot of times people think that their insurance is going to go up 75%. A lot of times when we make that adjustment, a lot of times it ends up being like, you know, $50-$60 a year.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's so at that point, it's not even a debatable, right? That's literally the way my brain kind of moves in that way is like, dude, that's like 3 less trips to Wendy's a year. Like, you know, that call it is, you probably don't need to be going anyway, right? If you're like me, right? But it's just literally like, you know, it's a massive increase in your policy, but it's not necessarily a massive increase in what you actually end up paying. And also it helps your insurance score too.
Yeah,
because it shows that you're more responsible by having higher limits.
I like it.
And then 6 months down the road, you know, your insurance score increases, then we requote it, and then hopefully saves you even more money after that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for all this information.
Absolutely.
Having you on the show.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
If you have any value, if you've gained any value from watching this episode, please hit that like and subscribe button. And I can't stress it enough to please share this video, because there's so much knowledge that he just gave that a lot of people will benefit from hearing it and understanding the importance behind it, and exploring the policies and increasing the policies or having more coverage option, because I think that's going to be a very beneficial when the day comes when it's going to happen, and especially when you talk about life insurance. Like when I was in my 20s, no one was talking about life insurance. I mean,
we didn't care.
Other service members were, obviously, because we had to update that. But outside of service members and my homies back from my high school hometown, that was not a topic. So, like, let's be realistic about this and reassess this whole insurance topic. Share this information, please. This is something that will be very beneficial not only to you, but to your buddies if you share this information. Kenny, thank you again.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching. Y'all have a good night.
Take care, guys.